At 65 years old, Harland David Sanders had just received a letter from the United States government informing him that his Social Security check would be $105 a month. His restaurant had been forced to close because a new highway had rerouted all the traffic away from it. He had no savings, no business, and no obvious future. Most people in that situation would have called it a life and accepted the check. Sanders put his pressure cooker in the back of his car, drove to a restaurant he had heard about in a nearby town, and cooked the owner a batch of fried chicken. That single meal launched one of the most recognizable fast food brands in history. He was 65 years old. He had already failed at almost everything else he had tried. Harland Sanders was born in 1890 in Henryville, Indiana. His father died when he was 6 years old, leaving his mother to support 3 children while working in a canning factory. By the time Harland was 7, he was cooking all the meals for the family while his mother worked. He was competent in the kitchen from childhood out of sheer necessity rather than passion. His early adult life was a catalogue of attempts, failures, and restarts that would discourage almost anyone. He dropped out of school at 13. He worked as a farmhand, a streetcar conductor, a railroad fireman, a ferryboat operator, an insurance salesman, and a tire salesman. He studied law by correspondence and practiced briefly before a courtroom brawl with a client ended that career. By his mid-30s, Sanders had started and abandoned more careers than most people attempt in a lifetime. In 1930, Sanders was operating a small service station in Corbin, Kentucky, when he began cooking meals for hungry travelers who stopped for gas. He had no restaurant, no dining room, and no formal setup. He simply cooked at his own table and served people in his living quarters attached to the station. Word spread about his cooking, more people stopped. The food started generating more revenue than the gasoline. Sanders expanded, added tables, and eventually converted the operation into a proper restaurant. He developed a method for frying chicken in a pressure cooker that drastically reduced cooking time while keeping the meat moist and flavorful. He experimented obsessively with spice combinations, testing variations on his family until he arrived at a blend he believed was genuinely exceptional. He called it his secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices. If the idea of someone starting over completely at 65 and building a global empire from a single recipe speaks to you, subscribe to SnapOldBusiness. We cover the real stories behind the brands that shaped your world, the failures, the late starts, and the unlikely victories. Subscribe now and let us continue with the man who turned rejection into a billion-dollar business. By the late 1930s, Sanders' restaurant in Corbin had become well known enough to attract a review from food critic Duncan Hines, who included it in his influential travel guide Adventures in Good Eating. This was significant exposure at a time when food criticism was a primary way restaurants built reputations beyond their local area. Sanders used the recognition to expand his operation, eventually opening a motel and a larger dining room that could seat 140 people. He was genuinely successful for the first time in his life. The restaurant was profitable, the motel was growing, and Sanders was building what looked like a stable, prosperous business. He was also developing the specific techniques that would eventually become KFC's operational foundation, particularly his pressure cooker method and his obsessive standardization of the recipe. Then in 1939, a fire destroyed the restaurant and motel completely. Sanders rebuilt. Then World War II created severe food shortages and rationing that made running a restaurant extraordinarily difficult. Sanders survived these years through sheer stubbornness. By the early 1950s, the restaurant was thriving again, and Sanders was sufficiently well regarded that the governor of Kentucky gave him an honorary title, Colonel, which Sanders embraced enthusiastically and kept for the rest of his life. The Colonel persona, the white suit, the black string tie, the silver hair and goatee, was not just an affectation. It was a brand identity that Sanders developed deliberately over years. Understanding that in the food business, a recognizable personality could be as valuable as a recognizable recipe, the highway was the thing that broke the first phase of Sanders' success. In 1955, the interstate highway system began construction, and a new route bypassed Corbin entirely. Traffic that had previously flowed past Sanders' restaurant simply stopped coming. He tried to hold on, but without the highway traffic, the business model did not work. By 1956, he was forced to auction off the restaurant to pay his debts. After the auction, after all expenses were settled, he had almost nothing left. He was 66 years old. His life's work had been erased by a government infrastructure decision he had no control over, and his only reliable income was his monthly Social Security check of $105. This is the moment most people give up. Sanders did not give up. He got in his car. Sanders had been thinking about franchising for several years before the highway disaster forced his hand. He had already made a handshake agreement with a restaurant owner named Pete Harman in Salt Lake City, Utah, who had agreed to add Sanders' chicken recipe to his menu in exchange for a small royalty payment per piece sold. Harman's restaurant, which added Kentucky Fried Chicken to its menu in 1952, saw significant sales increases. Sanders understood the model. If one restaurant could pay him a royalty to use his recipe in his system, then hundreds of restaurants could do the same. He did not need to own the restaurants, he just needed them to use his recipe and pay him for the privilege. He loaded his pressure cooker into his car, packed samples of his spice blend, and began driving across America to sell the concept. What followed is one of the most documented and most cited examples of persistence in American business history. Sanders drove from town to town, stopping at restaurants, cooking chicken for the owners, and pitching his franchise concept. The asking price was a royalty of 4 cents per chicken sold, which would be paid on the honor system with no formal auditing mechanism. Restaurant owners said no, then they said no again. Some said no rudely, some said no politely. Some did not say no, they simply never called back. Sanders kept meticulous records of his rejections. By the time he found his second franchise partner, he had been rejected over 1,000 times. The exact number most commonly cited is 1,009, though Sanders himself gave varying figures at different points in his life. The number is less important than the behavior it represents. A 66-year-old man, sleeping in his car to save money on motels, cooking chicken in strangers' kitchens every day, refusing to accept that his idea was not worth pursuing. The franchise network grew slowly at first, then faster. By 1960, Sanders had over 200 Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise locations across the United States and Canada. By 1963, there were over 600. The business model was genuinely elegant in its simplicity. Sanders charged no upfront franchise fee, just the 4 cents per chicken royalty. He provided the secret spice blend, the pressure cooker technique, and the operational standards. The franchisee provided the restaurant, the staff, and the capital investment. Sanders provided the recipe and the brand. Because the barrier to entry was low, the network expanded faster than almost any franchise concept before it. Every new location generated royalty income for Sanders without requiring any capital investment from him. Sanders himself became the most valuable marketing asset the company had. He traveled constantly, visiting franchise locations, cooking alongside the staff, ensuring the recipe was being prepared correctly, and maintaining the quality standards he had developed in Corbin. His white suit and Colonel persona were immediately recognizable. Journalists loved him. Television hosts invited him on programs. He was quotable, opinionated, and genuinely passionate about his chicken in a way that read as authentic because it was authentic. No advertising agency could have invented a more effective brand ambassador than Harland Sanders. And no advertising agency needed to, because he invented himself. By 1964, Sanders was 73 years old and managing a franchise network that had become more complex than he could handle alone. He was also, for the first time in his life, being approached by serious investors who wanted to buy the business. A group of investors led by John Y. Brown Jr. and Jack Massey offered him $2 million for Kentucky Fried Chicken, plus a salary of $40,000 per year to serve as brand ambassador, plus royalties on Canadian operations. Sanders accepted. The $2 million in 1964 is equivalent to approximately $19 million today. More importantly, the sale freed Sanders from operational complexity while preserving the thing he cared most about: his identity as the Colonel and his association with the recipe. He remained the face of KFC for the rest of his life. The investors who bought Kentucky Fried Chicken from Sanders turned it into a genuinely massive business. John Y. Brown Jr. took the company public in 1966. The IPO valued the company at over $280 million. By the early 1970s, KFC had over 3,000 locations and was one of the fastest-growing food businesses in the world. Hublin acquired it in 1971, then R.J. Reynolds in 1982, then PepsiCo in 1986, then Tricon Global Restaurants, which eventually became Yum Brands, in 1997. Today, KFC operates over 27,000 locations in 150 countries. It generates approximately $30 billion in system-wide sales annually. It was built on a recipe developed by a man cooking at his own dinner table in a Kentucky gas station in the 1930s. Sanders had a complicated relationship with what KFC became after the sale. He publicly criticized the quality of the food on multiple occasions, most notably and famously calling the gravy, in a 1976 newspaper interview, nothing but wallpaper paste and sludge. He was equally critical of the biscuits, the mashed potatoes, and the general direction of the menu. The company he had sold was making changes he considered a betrayal of the original product. He was not shy about saying so. KFC's corporate management found his public criticisms embarrassing and occasionally threatened legal action. Sanders did not particularly care. He had spent 60 years being told he was wrong about things he turned out to be right about, and he had no intention of stopping. What is perhaps most remarkable about Sanders' story is what it reveals about the relationship between age and entrepreneurship. Every conventional wisdom about starting a business suggests that youth is an advantage. Energy, risk tolerance, the ability to recover from failure, the decades ahead to compound returns, all of these favor the young founder. Sanders' story dismantles that framework completely. He brought to his 65-year-old venture something that no 25-year-old could have had: 40 years of operational experience in the food service business, a perfected recipe tested over decades, a fully developed personal brand with genuine authenticity, and the absolute certainty that comes from having already survived everything. His age was not a disadvantage. It was the source of every competitive advantage he had. The persistence narrative around Sanders, the 1009 rejections, has become so embedded in motivational culture that it is worth examining what the rejections actually represented. Sanders was not being rejected for being old or for having a bad product. Most of the restaurant owners who said no to him were saying no to a genuinely unfamiliar and somewhat risky business proposition: pay a royalty on the honor system to a 66-year-old man driving around in a car for the right to use a fried chicken recipe. From the perspective of a conservative restaurant owner in 1956, that proposition sounded peculiar at best and suspicious at worst. The miracle was not that over 1,000 people said no. The miracle was that Sanders kept asking until enough people said yes to make the concept viable. Sanders died on December 16, 1980 at the age of 90, from leukemia. He had been diagnosed only weeks earlier and had spent his final months doing what he had always done: traveling, cooking, and representing the brand he had built. He died a wealthy man, though not extraordinarily wealthy by the standards of what KFC had become, because he had sold at a relatively early stage of the company's growth. He is buried in Louisville, Kentucky, in a white suit. His face still appears on the KFC logo today. He is one of the most recognized commercial figures in the world, and he started with nothing, built something, lost it to a highway, then rebuilt it again from a car at 65, armed with a pressure cooker and a recipe he had been perfecting for 30 years. 3 lessons from Harland Sanders that apply to any stage of any career. First, the product you have been refining for 30 years is more valuable than the product someone invented last week. Sanders spent 3 decades perfecting his recipe before he began franchising it. The depth of that refinement, the absolute certainty he had about its quality, was the foundation of everything. Whatever you have been working on for a long time has more value than you may currently realize, because time and repetition produce a quality that cannot be shortcut. Second, rejection is information about the pitch, not about the product. Over 1,000 restaurant owners said no to Sanders. The recipe did not change because of those rejections. Sanders refined his sales approach. He learned what objections came up most often and developed better answers. He treated rejection as a data point rather than a verdict. Third, your personal brand is an asset that compounds with age. The Colonel persona, the white suit, the genuine passion for the food, these things became more credible and more valuable as Sanders got older, not less. Authenticity is not something you can manufacture, it is something that accumulates. The larger context of Sanders' story is what it says about conventional timelines for success. Modern startup culture is obsessed with youth, with the 23-year-old founder with the company that achieves $1 billion valuation before anyone on the team is 30. Sanders built his most valuable business after most people have stopped building businesses entirely. His story is not an outlier in the history of entrepreneurship either. Ray Kroc was 52 when he first visited McDonald's. Henry Ford was 45 when he introduced the Model T. Vera Wang was 40 when she launched her fashion label. Charles Darwin was 50 when he published On the Origin of Species. The narrative that entrepreneurship belongs to the young is a narrative, not a fact, and Sanders' life is one of the clearest possible demonstrations of what. Harland Sanders cooked his first meal for paying strangers at a gas station because he had no other option. He lost everything he built when a highway bypassed his town. He started again at 65 with $105 a month and a recipe he believed in. He was rejected over 1,000 times and kept going. He sold the company for $2 million and spent the rest of his life as its most effective advertisement. He criticized the product publicly, argued with the corporate management, and remained the most recognizable symbol of the brand until the day he died. He never became the world's richest man. He never appeared on a list of the most powerful people in business. He just made very good fried chicken, refused to stop when everything told him to stop, and built something that feeds millions of people every single day, decades after he is gone. Subscribe if this story was worth your time. See you in the next one.